We're live. And boom! According to that, I am live. Welcome. My name is Hiko Simon. This is Tokyo Tonight. It's Tokyo Monday morning, Monday afternoon. It's Monday 11:30 a.m. in Japan. Color's looking a bit washed out at the moment. I don't know what's happening with that. I had to reinstall the camera. Also, lately, OBS, which I'm using, has been crashing at the start of every show. I may have to reboot OBS, although I now know how we can do that. So apologies in advance if this crashes. Hope that you're all doing well. Great in particular to see that Erin made it here. I know it's late for you. In fact, I hope you've had daylight saving as well, so at least it's 10:30 p.m. for you as well. West Coast here in the US, clocks have moved an hour earlier. So this morning, I guess that the nice thing is that in this day and age, I haven't had, when I left New Zealand, there were no smartphones. So, you know, you'd have all these people who would forget to update their clocks and TV and everyone reminding you. Whereas I woke up this morning and it was like 8 o'clock. And I was like, geez, I feel really tired for 8 o'clock, but I've got to give back the car at 12. So I'm going to, take it up for a run. It didn't occur to me till later in the day that, oh, it's an hour earlier. So like 8 a.m. was like my body was feeling 7 a.m. That's probably why I was so tired. So yeah, I guess I survived the changing of the clock. But of course, Southern Hemisphere changes the opposite direction. So it's like a 2-hour switch. And from Japan, it even switches an hour. So, it's kind of, I've come around after a long amount of time to thinking it's better just to leave the clocks as they are and leave the time differences the same. But yeah. My shirt matches my board. It kind of does. It kind of does. Yeah. I wasn't thinking anything. I just threw this on. But Mona Pacifica, yes, they're actually a rugby team based near where I was born, in South Auckland, New Zealand. But yeah, so anyway, before Erin crashes out, let's say hello to everyone. We've got Cobra Stenchi, woo, good to see you indeed. Wood from Odie Jr., boom, 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 good to see you. So glad, again, with the times changing every week. I'm sorry for a lot of people. I know this will, particularly people in Europe and stuff, I think this might really screw up the ability to come and join. But yes, Erin doesn't want to go back to work. None of us do. None of us want to go back to work tomorrow. But what can we do? Yeah, Quint Rankett asking, am I sending crash reports to OBS? I don't remember. I don't have a problem with doing that. I might be. I'm not sure. But yeah. It's okay. It's okay. I had a busy day again today. If you've been following my Twitter, you'll see that I had a rental car. I had an awesome rental car. I'll talk about that a little bit later on. But yeah, I just asked for like the Kia hatchback, and they gave me a BMW Sports because they were out of hatchbacks, and they gave it to me at the rate of a Korean hatchback. So I had 24 hours driving around in a BMW 418i, but it was nice. It was like, yeah, I lucked out. That car would have been something like $220 or something per day, and I got it for 130. So I drove like everywhere. I went to a rugby game last night. I watched the Seattle Seawolves play. I went to a bunch of parks I wanted to go running in that I can't run to from where I am. Ran around a lake today. I went to Issaquah, which is out by the mountains just outside of Seattle, just to scope it out. It was cool. Just did a bunch of driving. I wish I had that for the road trip. I do want to get down to Oregon and see where they made the Goonies and go see Cannon Beach and Astoria and come back via Portland. It's a plan that I have. It'd be really nice in a car like that. When I want to do that, I'll probably actually get the Korean hatchback. But it's all good in the hood. So yes. Anyway, who else we got in here? We've got Quint, Erin, and Odie and Cobra Stenchi in here already. Ada Void, good evening. Indeed, good evening. Used to saying good morning to you every time, but good evening, of course. Jude, hi from the Canadian Rockies. Wow, that's hi and hi. Yeah, hello, Canadian Rockies. I must admit, I've been paying a bit more attention as well. I'm just so nervous about going to Canada, about just screwing something up with immigration. Like I know I have to plan it like I'm doing an international trip and have all the documentation, but it's like less than a 3-hour drive, which by American standards, they seem to treat that as a short trip. I treat that as a long trip, but it's doable. So I definitely want to get over to Canada, although Canadian Rockies I appreciate is probably like a day's drive from here. But awesome. Nice to have you in the chat, Jude. Welcome. Who else we got in here? My shirt. Quint, it's GDS Apollo for travel. John Carlo Lanoy, good to have you in here. Good morning from the Philippines. Nice to have the Philippines in with us. Let's just dive into the topics. It's been an interesting week, of course. Today, Monday in Japan, Freedom Day. Today is the day that official government guidance has changed to saying officially although they've kind of been saying this all along, but they've made some big proclamation that you don't actually have to wear masks anymore. So, of course, everybody ventured out for Monday morning with their masks still on. By all accounts, nothing has changed. In some ways, if they wanted to make it like Mask Freedom Day, doing it in the middle of the worst hay fever season in 10 years, at least in Tokyo, probably, like half the people would be wearing masks normally exactly at this time of year anyway. Also, crazy hot weather. I'm getting used to there. It's kind of funny. I'm getting used to measurements. When I was driving, one thing is when it says that turn in 700 feet, and I'm like, okay, 3 feet in a meter, 700 divided by 3. By the time I've done the math, I've missed the turn, right? But miles to kilometers and feet to meters, I can kind of do. Even temperatures, subtract 35, divide by 2. I'm kind of getting better at that. So, for example, yeah, I mean, it was easy today because it was like 36 degrees this morning when I was running around, which is basically like half a degree Celsius. And humid. It was weird, actually. When I finished running around the lake, I took off a jacket I was wearing and just steam just poured off me. Yeah, it's very, very much like New Zealand winter here, actually. And cold, like too cold. I know the rest of America is even colder right now, but still for me, like, I like it to be a little bit warmer. But Tokyo's like crazy right now. I've been seeing the weather forecast and it's like they're having into the 20s right now, which is like, I guess in Fahrenheit would be above 75. Like, when I got here to Seattle, the temperatures were the same. And yet here it still is like 0 degrees Celsius, 35 to, 40 something. And in Japan, they've just suddenly rocketed up to 70 something. And it's, I'm a little bit jealous of that, as well as, of course, the generally better weather. Although spring is generally kind of crappy weather. What all this means, of course, is that when they were originally forecasting that the cherry blossom season would start late March, as it always does, but start a little bit on the early side around the 27th in Tokyo, they've now moved it up where it's so warm that there are already some confused trees blooming. And probably like mid-March, it's going to be like full-on cherry blossom season, which is unusual. The whole idea of cherry blossom season is if you're in Japan, you start school, you start new corporate stuff on April 1st, and, the images, you're doing that under the falling, cherry blossom petals. They sort of time the whole year around the cherry blossoms in Japan, the fiscal year, the school year, the job hiring year, everything. But lately, with global warming, I suppose, and all of that, the cherry blossoms are they're done by the time that you start. So, kind of interesting. They're definitely different pattern over here at the moment. Masks, we laugh in the face of masks, America. I saw somebody confuse trees, right? Trees are like people. I was very impressed with myself earlier today. I came up with something very smart, which I realized I actually, I had some great coffee that was made by a robot. I've got a picture of it here. Yeah, this robot, it was really cool. It made me like a strawberry, I think in this day and age, it's totally politically incorrect to say I made myself a girly drink, but it was it was delicious. I've got no problem. I'm in touch with that side of myself. But yes, it made me a strawberry mocha latte, and it was delicious. This robot made it, and it even did latte art and everything. I'm going to go back there again and take a time lapse of it making the coffee. It was really, really cool. But when you got to pay, like everything else here, the thing asks, how much of a tip do you want to give? 20%, 25%, or 30%? I'm like, I think a robot made that thing. But, and people are pointing out, if it's a robot, you don't have to pay. In defense of the robot, there was actually a human in the cafe as well, who was probably there to make sure that the robot keeps working. And in fact, it was a good coffee. I was happy and I was entertained. It was like awesome, man. So I was, as things go, and I just pay tips, right? And someone pointed out, well, technically there's no, I said that I paid a mandatory tip even though it was a robot. And lots of people said, hey, tips aren't mandatory. You don't have to do them. I don't think you'll be an AH if you don't pay a tip. And it suddenly occurred to me, well, it's just like masks in Japan. Masks have never been mandatory. But if you don't, you just feel like a jerk, and it's just easier. In my own personal philosophy and case, and I think the case for most Japanese people, it's just easier to go along with it than to deal with the hassle of not going along with it. And that's the attitude that I take to doing tips in America. It's just, just tell me how much I got to pay. I wish they would incorporate the costs. I think the whole concept is flawed. It's like arguing the science about masks. Nobody cares. You just got to do it. Just do it. Don't look like a jerk. And I must admit, even when a robot makes my coffee, I think that tipping in America is like masks in Japan. You know, you're never going to persuade any Japanese person. All these people saying, well, scientifically, I've got a paper here that says that masks are not scientifically proven to be effective, which kind of defies common sense in Japan predating the pandemic, like by 100 years. People have been like, even the Spanish flu and cholera in the 19th century. Japanese have been masking, you know, in the face of pandemics for over 100 years. So it's just a cultural norm, which makes it kind of irrelevant. Even if you can come and say, "Oh, I found a scientific paper that says there's no decisive, proof of the effectiveness of masks," that's just somebody who doesn't want to wear masks trying to justify not wearing them. But it's not even a matter of the science. Japanese are not wearing them because they were deceived by some scientists. They just wear them because it's the culture. And if you don't do it, you look like an asshole. And it's kind of the same with tipping in America. You know, technically there's no law that says you have to tip. It's just like you're a jerk if you don't, and everyone will like think that you're a terrible person. And it's a very, very similar analogy. And it's like with the robot as well. Yeah, there's no mandatory tipping technically, but socially there kind of is. And yeah, I just go with the flow. I haven't masked a day since I've been here. I mean, I think on the buses in Seattle you still wear masks. So I carry a mask, but I put it on like twice the whole time in over a month. I've had my anniversary, by the way, my 1 month here, first month here out of 5. And yeah, you know, I'm very comfortable not masking here, just as I'm comfortable masking in Japan, just as I'm comfortable paying tips here, even to a robot. It's a pretty cool robot. It was worth the tip. So anyway. Just a spontaneous thought that I had this week, but certainly it seems that with Let's Unmask Day, the problem is it was never based on any sort of rational or scientific, or, you know, it wasn't because the government said it that people do. It wasn't Japanese being sheeple obeying the government. It's just what people do. It's what they did during SARS, 20 years ago, or, 15 years ago, I remember. Yeah, everybody wore masks because they were afraid, and I don't know if it was the reason, but it didn't really catch on in Japan. There were some cases, but it didn't spread like it did in Hong Kong. So, that's the thing on masks, but definitely I think there's a big parallel between tipping in America and wearing masks in Japan. Even if it doesn't make sense, and I don't think a lot, including myself, are not convinced that it doesn't make some sense, but even if you accept that it doesn't make sense, you still do it because you just don't want to be that guy. So anyway, coming back up here, anyone else joined? Eater, good to see you, Eater. Doesn't a U.S. citizenship come with 1911 and a bald eagle? I don't know what that means, but I'm sure it does. I'm not going for American citizenship. I think the big thing is how they tax you internationally if you become a U.S. citizen. I've heard of Americans who renounce American citizenship because of that. So yeah, oh, men's swimwear, I see. Yo, Hiko, when am I getting my U.S. citizenship? I'm not getting, unless they make me an astronaut. If they make me an astronaut, that was always the plan, was to become an astronaut, and then I'd become an American citizen, because I think that was a requirement back in the day. However, until they make me an astronaut, that's my price. I will renounce my New Zealand citizenship and become an American. In fact, I don't even know if you actually have to renounce or not. I don't think you do in America, do you? You can hold dual citizenship. But anyway, no immediate plans. Cobra Senshi, there is a nice X-Files episode that falls into that. Mulder and Scully sit in a sushi restaurant run by robots, and when Mulder decides not to pay a tip, things start to get weird. Yeah, maybe if they were in a real sushi restaurant in Japan, it'd be like wearing masks. I don't know how that would work, but anyway. So anyway, let's dive into the topics, because Aaron's about to pass out. Both from it being late and also because of me talking. So I have to talk faster to cram more in before she passes out. Japanese workers become migrants seeking better pay overseas. This is we've been talking for a while that why aren't Japanese becoming like this? And by the way, I've just realized I should probably reposition the capture. Oh, I do pay for it. Here, yeah, okay. Make that a little bit more visible. Yeah, right now, I mean, I definitely feel it here. The fact that even the cafeteria where I work charges like $15. It's pretty normal to pay $15 before tax and before tip, which means, at the cafeteria I don't have to pay a tip, thank heavens. But if I go outside, it's pretty normal to pay $15. Like just tonight, I had a $10 salad, Vietnamese salad, which I put half of it into a Tupperware container to make it $5 and then a kiwi fruit. I am literally a developing country exchange student. I'm not quite eating ramen. I'm not doing that anymore. My body can't handle that anymore. But yeah, I'm like the fact that like a normal lunch will set you back like $25, which on the current yen exchange rate, that's like 3,500 yen. In Japan, you can have a good lunch, like at a restaurant, like, for certainly 1,200 yen, you'll get a good lunch. And honestly, you'll get a good lunch at a regular lunch place that you might carry out, like a bento, for easily like 800 yen. Like $5 or like $8 for a restaurant. So the idea that I'm paying $35, it hurts, So, and pay scales are adjusted. They have had wage inflation here. It's kind of weird that Japanese wouldn't do that. And especially in this case, a systems engineer. Systems engineers in Japan, not only are they underpaid, not only do they get paid like $50,000, $60,000 a year, where American system engineers that do the same type of work get paid up to like 200 grand, but they're also working, they're less respected. They work longer hours. They get abused the whole time. Why would you stay? Again, it's baffling to me. Just like why wouldn't an SE learn digital skills and cloud skills and AI ML skills? Also, why wouldn't you learn English and just escape? All of that, when you think about, of course, where taxes and everything are going, there isn't a lot to look forward to economically in Japan. It's nice, it's comfortable, but you wouldn't want to be in a job where particularly the quality of life ratio is bad. So, former car company engineer who moved to Sweden enjoys higher pay and more family time. Yeah, why wouldn't you, right? And this ties into another article I've got coming later on, how Japan and South Korea. South Korea, one below Japan. In the OECD, in the Economist's Glass Ceiling Index, remains the bottom for women. Terrible for families. I saw Lily Kimberly Tierney on Twitter just tweeting just now how she got shouted at by her daycare teacher because her kid was the tobam for the day, and they were supposed to show up early, and it wasn't even clear what tobam, what they were. It was their turn, they're on the roster to be in charge of something. But like the idea that in daycare or teaching that the parents did all of the work. The whole idea of daycare is to make it easier for parents to work, and yet the burdens that parents have to carry home, soiled nappies and wash them. They have to be clothed and they have to prepare the lunches for the kids. It's just extra work and stress. And on top of that, the daycare teachers shout. It's really hard to contemplate. Japan has to kind of make itself more livable if it wants to hold on to its population, because it's not going to compete on salary. And this is clearly what's happening here. Jeff, good to see you, Jeff. Inflation in the US hit nearly 9%. Most places gave 3 to 4% raises, if any. Yeah, no, indeed. And, Japan's currently 2 to 3% inflation and no wage inflation yet to speak of. The media's been making a big kind of mood making, I think, making a big deal out of more companies are getting into, talking about increasing wages for some or all employees, but they're not really, doing that yet. So similar story that everyone's basically getting poorer. This actually ties into another story I've got coming up as well. Quickly taking a look. Good to see Jeff. Good to see that you can make it. Also, Thomas Morris, good to see you. You went to a kaiseki ryori dinner for 12,000 yen, please. I think, for 1,200 yen, please. Yeah, well, I mean, kaiseki. Are you asking for that? I'm trying to think. Oh, that would be fancy. And 1,200 yen kaiseki ryori would. I would check their sanitation reports. But you know what? For lunch, it's in the realms of possibility that, for dinner, no. But for lunch, it's absolutely. The thing is here for lunch, you can spend like $80, like on like a burger and some chips. And the portions are big, like too big to eat, actually. But yeah, no, it's killing me. Things are like food in particular is like more than 3 times, getting close to 4 times what I'm used to. I'm dealing with it. It's cool. It's what I signed up for. I'm having a great time here, but yeah. Japan is. Think about it the other way. Japan is cheap right now. So seriously, you should be like right now. You got the cherry blossoms. It's getting warm. You don't even have to wear masks anymore technically, although you're still going to get some dirty side eyes. But it's so cheap, like right now in Japan, and people in Japan are fleeing, which is a good sign. It's good to go the other way. Anyway, next story that we've got. Yeah, just the comment. Full motto, so I'm here until the end of June, but I just realized the other day, 7th, I came on the 7th of February, and I still hadn't even driven yet when the anniversary came up. So I made a point of driving today and yesterday, and that was good, and I'm going to try to expand. But yeah, it's nice to spend a proper, meaningful amount of time here in America, and I think coming here, if I'd come here expecting everything to be familiar, I would have had a problem. But I think I've kind of come here as a quasi-Japanese tourist. I've been living in Japan most of my life now, 25 years. It adds up to where that's the perspective that I look at everything. So I think embracing that means no culture shock. It means everything's interesting. From a culture shock perspective, America is comfortable. In fact, I find quite often things about America that are different are things that I like or I feel an affinity with. I like the fact people are friendly and spontaneous and talk to each other. People sing in shops and stuff. I like all that stuff, and particularly in Seattle. I will say, I mean, on many small observations, but like even driving, people here are really chill. Like honestly, New Zealanders are nice, but like in cars, they're not nice. Like driving in New Zealand can be pretty stressful. There's a lot of pent up repressed aggression where people are being nice all the time and they let out their dark side when they drive. UK is very much like this as well. I've never been more scared than when I was driving in the UK, like in terms of driving. Seattle is like, people like are really laid back. They're really courteous. There's a lot of waving, a lot of, oh, please, you go first, pedestrian. And, it's good. Even when I'm figuring out the roads and trying to avoid driving on the wrong side, people are pretty forgiving, which is good. So in spite of the cost, I am digging the culture here anyway. And I know that Seattle's different. I mean, everywhere is different to everywhere else, but I'm digging Seattle anyway. Besides yogurt, how are the supermarkets treating me, us, Aaron? The yogurt is amazing. I just actually went to Amazon Fresh and bought a whole bunch of other stuff today. I mean, obviously, I'm not cooking a lot at home. So honestly, with the supermarkets, it's kind of just basics. I'm basically eating out for lunch and having light dinners. I've got some salads. I've got some, some breakfast cereal. I don't know. They're good. I must admit, the thing about Amazon Fresh, for example, and Whole Foods is, Whole Foods doesn't have the same system. You're not conscious about how much it's costing. It's this clever thing about the system. It actually encourages you to buy more. I went in there for some milk and I walked out with $50 worth of stuff today. The vegetables are good. The apples. Oh, Granny Smiths. I bought Granny Smiths today. You can't buy Granny Smith apples in Japan. You can if you live in Tohoku, but you cannot buy them in Tokyo. You have 35 different types of apple that are all red and look and taste basically the same. They're all variants basically of the Fuji apple. No Granny Smith apples. Japanese don't like to buy them unless they really know apples, which is just up in Aomori. So Granny Smith apples, the juices, the juices say contains juice without saying how much or what, and you taste it and it tastes like sugar. So I kind of don't really trust the labels. I'm absolutely avoiding the junk food. Even the protein bars taste like chocolate bars. I'm pretty sure they're basically like chocolate bars. They're not like Japanese, like zero sugar stuff, but it tastes good as a result. So I'm just being careful about that. But yeah, I've found food that I like for pretty much everything. The only thing I'm really missing, and this is just a Seattle thing perhaps, if you go into a bakery, they're not bread shops. They sell cakes. They don't sell bread. And all the bread, again, a million different types of bread, all sliced like less than a centimeter thick. There's no thick bread. There's only one Japanese bakery, Fuji Bakery in Seattle, that sells at Wajime, and I got a loaf of wrap, and that held me over for a week. But it's all like thin sliced bread. That's the only thing I really don't like. But and I've got a Korean supermarket right beside where I'm living. And they actually do like bentos, like grilled, spicy. Oh, that is one thing. The spicy stuff here is actually very spicy. I have an image coming from New Zealand that, Western, or at least New Zealand, Australia, I know it's changing now, but certainly when I was growing up, Caucasian people, particularly in New Zealand, just couldn't handle any sort of spicy food. And because my dad made super spicy stuff, curries at home, I grew up eating that, and I always felt like, as a Caucasian, I did pretty well when it came to spicy food. And Japan was much spicier than New Zealand, or at least you could find spicier food in Japan than in New Zealand. But I'm finding stuff here that like hurts my mouth physically. Is unpleasant and doesn't even taste, very much. The Korean stuff is excellent, but it's much spicier than you get in Japan. The gochujang and even the kimchi in Japan is a little bit toned down from the Korean stuff and has, if you ask me, more flavor. Don't say that to a Korean person, they'll get very upset. So yeah, I'm finding the spicy stuff here is like super spicy, but I'm thinking I'm not having problems with the food. I'm watching my portions. I'm using a lot of Tupperware and I'm basically like dividing things in half, but I'm finding it good. The quality of food in Seattle, Americans comment as well. You don't see many obese people in Seattle. Everyone's very active, but also there's a lot of healthy food. The food is generally healthy. So yeah, and I'm deliberately avoiding greasy, food and donuts and stuff. So anyway, more impressions. Yeah, Macaulay, Ohio gozaimasu indeed. Shubis, spices. Good to see you, Shubis. Good morning. Hope you're having a nice coffee there. Good coffee here in Seattle, by the way, as well. You throw a rock, you hit good coffee. Starbucks is actually the one. I haven't had Starbucks once yet. I actually avoid it because I have memories of having it and not enjoying it here. Thomas Morris wants to eat at the top of the Shinjuku Park Hyatt Hotel. You go do that. Right now is the best time to do it. Quinn Rankin, have you found an Indian restaurant in America yet and ordered the hot stuff? There are Indian restaurants around. I've had food from an Indian food wagon, but I didn't get anything particularly hot. It was delicious. But the food trucks I've had, I haven't been into an Indian, and I think I've learned at this point that, yeah, if you ask for, when they say hot on the menu, it's not like New Zealand hot. It's like hot by the standards of someone from a country where you eat hot food. So I've learned to be careful. John Carlo Lanoy asks, I think the first Sunday of April in Japan is the Kanamara Matsuri Festival. Enjoy it. Well, I've never been. I'm not that I've got anything against. I mean, it's, something I like about Japan is that they don't have as many hang-ups. It does put things in perspective. It makes you realize that, well, why do we have such hang-ups about having... but, they carry it quite a long way in the opposite direction sometimes. But, yeah, have fun with that. I've not been. It's good YouTuber bait anyway. Aaron, you're going to remember to wear green on Fridays. Is it St. Paddy's Day? I don't know. As someone who doesn't drink very much, I guess I don't have it marked on my calendar. But hey, thanks for the reminder there. I might do that. Anyway, well, wow, we are not making any progress through stories at all. Just thought this was cool. Stable diffusion make mind reading a reality. I found this super cool, but what it's doing, just to be clear, you know how they've gotten these things where now they can figure out, they can actually replicate when you look at an object like a ball. They can actually get a super low resolution, like an 8-bit image from your brain receptors that, oh, you're looking at something that's light here and dark here and it makes this shape. What Stable Diffusion is doing is it's not actually reading your brain any better than the 8-bit, map that people have already, which is already remarkable that we're already starting to be able to image what people are seeing with their optic nerve, including when their eyes are closed. If you can create the image in your head, again, which is literally like mind reading. That what Stable Diffusion is doing, what these AI things are doing, they're figuring out what's the most likely high resolution image of the thing that you're most likely to be looking at if it's this shape. So this shape conforms to, if it's round, they might guess it's a soccer ball and show a high resolution picture of a soccer ball. It might be something else. But it is cool, again, how they're increasingly using this to be able to get good guesses of what people are thinking. And again, I love this tech, and it's something that's on my bucket list. I've gotten a few tech. I've got a full certification. I've got to sit an exam for it, but I've been taking classes, and I'm building up to taking machine learning courses, which actually causes me to skip to here. Follow Marcos. He's been following me. I've been following him back for a while. He's done some graphics and stuff for me in the past. A really interesting guy, and he's lately super into all of the AI stuff, including making apps, and he uses these Mid-Journey Stable Diffusion for his own work. Professionally, he uses them for design. He finds them helpful tools. And I think the way that he uses these apps is a good example of how you can use them not just to cheat on your homework, but as a tool to enhance what you do and make you more productive. And he's lately been doing these little challenges where, show a picture of someone with white hair wearing white futuristic clothes, like for a fashion show. These are the conditions. Come up with the best, figure out the best prompts, the best text inputs to get the best sort of outputs, and put your best pictures on a response to his tweet. He's been doing this sort of every day, these AI art challenges, and it's cool. You learn how to control and get it to make things that you want, and it's both funny and interesting how you get seeing what it comes up with, but also realizing that you can control it. It is a tool. It's not purely, of course you can use it as a, hey, just draw a picture of something, and it'll draw a picture of something. It's literally, you can actually specify in all sorts of detail. It's really mind-blowing how well it works. And again, if you're someone who can take that and manipulate it, I think it's very cool. Which is coming on to another topic I've got queued up about how, don't think this is replacing work. I think it'll be used for enhancing work. But yeah. One thing that happened this week for people who were watching, I was tweeting, I was very excited myself about how the H3 rocket, Japan's next generation rocket, first I tried launching it a couple of weeks ago, and the main rocket fired, but the two boosters did not fire. So, and someone from JAXA actually said in a press conference, technically, if it never took off, it's not a failure. To which the internet said, yeah, that sounds a lot like a failure. Not actually. When you're supposed to take off and you don't take off, spinning that is not a failure doesn't resonate as true. So the other day they actually got this thing going. And by the way, if this is working, they would have used this for launching some of the components of the Artemis mission to the moon and the moon base and everything. And it would have put Japan back on the map as being one of the major launch providers, competing with SpaceX and other companies and helping NASA. So kind of a big deal to get this right. Again, remember, Japan's rocket tech is not copied from Russia like China's is. It's not sold to them in a black box like America originally did with the Atlas rockets, and they said, screw that, we'll make it ourselves. It's independently developed tech. So it is cool, but they're not keeping up at all with American private industry at the moment. So they launched the H3. If you saw it, you saw it. The first stage, it looked like it was going really well, but when it separated, the second stage, all of a sudden, like the speed number kept dropping and the altitude was sort of leveling out and dropping. And I was like, oh, they're still taking the sensors from the first stage that just dropped away. But no, it was the second stage. The second stage didn't fire. So it fell back and they detonated it, which puts the H3 program. Remember, the H2 program was exploding all the time. They were practically fireworks. So they'll get it right, but it does call into question whether they can contribute now to Artemis and the moon thing. And a lot of people thinking exactly what I was thinking in the comments. Some people talking about how Mitsubishi Heavy, which created this rocket, also created the Japanese domestic airliner, the Mitsubishi Jet, the MRJ, which was about to start selling the sort of 737 competitor to all these airlines right when the pandemic hit, which caused everybody to cancel all of their orders, which put the thing out of business just when they'd finished like 15 years of developing this thing. It was really bad luck for them, honestly, because it was a pretty cool looking jet. So it's another kind of kick to the Kanamara Matsuri portions for Mitsubishi Heavy, having the H3 fail as well. I hope that they bounce back. It's actually good tech. I mean, they're having a bad run. But yeah, it was a shame watch. It's the thing when you watch rocket, especially for new rockets, and there's a whole bunch of new rockets launching at the moment. It's really exciting to watch, but exciting in the same way as watching one of those car races where there are like spectacular crashes quite often that you know it's going to happen. So yeah, did I say Rocchetto? Maybe I said Rocchetto. It's quite possible I said Rocchetto. You know, you've been in Japan too long when. So yeah, that was a thing. Oh, I saw an NHL game. It was awesome. So actually, I've had a crazy week. Last Saturday, I saw the Seattle Sounders soccer team, which honestly looked like a crappy high school team. Kind of good atmosphere. I got to watch a game at Lumen Field. Good atmosphere. A little bit forced and everything, but it was whatever. I got to see a game, and it was awesome seeing it from a corporate box. Then in the week, I saw the Kraken, who are currently like near the top of the NHL at the moment. That was great. The NHL arena, the Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle is really, really good. And the Seattle beat the Anaheim Ducks. Really good game. That was a good night out. So NHL rocks. And this is kind of filling in that pain spot that Seattle people have for not having an NBA team. And then last night I went to go watch the rugby. Seattle actually has an undefeated rugby team in the professional Major League Rugby at the moment, the MLR, and they were playing the only other undefeated team, Houston SaberCats, and they won, and it was a great game, and it was a good quality rugby. As a rugby fan wearing a rugby jersey from New Zealand, we have high standards, and it was up to standards. I was watching it with another New Zealander and some people from work. The only thing is that it was 0, like Celsius. It was cold. It was a clear night for the first time, maybe since I've been here. It was a clear night, and it was maybe below freezing, and we were all sitting on aluminum benches. That was basically like sitting in sub-zero on top of ice blocks. It was kind of freezing me out from the inside, from the core. It was like what you do with frozen meat. You put it on I was basically frozen meat on an ice block watching this game. It was a good game, but next time I might go and watch another game, but I'm definitely going to take a blanket or something to sit on. But it was great. Do what Aaron says. Yes, smash the like button. I must admit, it's kind of the screen I have in front of me is awesome. It's enormous, but I have to look up at it. So yes, you're getting a good view of my chin probably. But yeah, no comments I can. By the way, remember, if you want to get my attention or you want to comment or get my Tim the Asian Ink, good to see you. Boom, 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 boom. So many explosions. Good to see you there. Do remember, just say my name. It flashes up orange, for Simon, and I will do that. Hockey, they get aggressive. Yeah, there's a bit of buffo, some punch-ups. I went to go see with an Australian from work who's an Aussie Rules fan. And as soon as there was a bit of a tangle-up, she's shouting, punch him, punch him, punch him, punch him. Oh, yes, you are an Australian Rules fan from Victoria, I can tell. It was good. It was good atmosphere. It was a good night out. Yeah, AI. So this again, I'm super into this stuff, and I'm following it, and just like before with the AI, like art and stuff like that, this could lead to a new era of work-life balance. I've seen this so many times. As we all know, every productivity-enhancing technology that comes out that is supposed to lead to the four-day working week, and everybody is saying, hey, now I can. Now that we can manufacture, instead of manufacturing 1 car a week, we can manufacture 10 cars a week with robots. We hardly even have to, we can only have to work 1 day a week. Not what happens. The extra enhanced productivity becomes the expectation baseline, and actually we become 100 times more productive and miserable and overworked. But I would like this to be true. I would like AI to become the gateway to basic universal income and 4-day working week. And there is this idea that again, if people have more recreational time, they will spend more money and make the economy go around more. People don't buy cars and houses because they're too busy working half the time. They'll be consuming on their days off. So there's so many things that have shown that people are more productive if they, they'll get more done in 4 days than they will in 5 days. The trial at Microsoft, even in Japan, the trial at Microsoft showed that, as well as the fact that, they're out there, buying stuff, which companies need people to do to be able to sell stuff. Instead of being locked up at work the whole time. And AI is a great opportunity to do this again, but history says that, it's just going to mean more work. So we'll see, but I'm really hopeful that, it'll improve things like, for a start, things like hospital waiting lists and, legal work and all sorts of stuff should improve dramatically, but hopefully that won't equate to, expectation of doing more stuff. We'll see. Frozen kiwi on a stick, yes indeed. Let's buy an airliner from that country with the exploding space rockets. Yeah, well, they got the H2 rocket good, but now right when they decided to go for the H3, which I should point out took 15 years as well. So yeah, possibly not good. Not good timing. Tokyo 503, good to see you, Tokyo 503. Ohio gozaimasu from Tokyo, where it's lunchtime and raining. One thing I remember from Japanese class in New Zealand was in Japan, Ohio gozaimasu is Ohio gozaimasu until 10 a.m. After 10 a.m., it's konnichiwa. Which can sometimes be used sarcastically for people who are showing up late to work. In fact, maybe you say konbanwa. Although there is, of course, the other habit that if you're starting the workday, if you're like in entertainment, if you like work as a hostess, not that I would know from first-hand experience, but apparently when you show up to work at 10 p.m. to start your shift, you would say Ohio gozaimasu to people because you're starting your workday. But that's the thing. But yes, indeed. Good morning, good midday there in Japan. AI needs to work on its customer service aspect. I reckon they should have Army, the arm robot that made my coffee that I tipped, teach customer service. It was pretty, honestly, I don't want, to me, good service is not making me make 1,000 decisions. I feel like I'm working for the person who's taking my order when that's happening. Just make what I asked for and make it well. Seriously, the best. That arm seriously earned its tip by not talking to me better than half the people who have given me customer service here. Tim the Asian Ink. Give people to afford things and give them time to do it. Yes, indeed, and they actually do it. It sounds like socialism. Yes, you don't want that. It's kind of funny how Yes, you'll set me off on a tirade. How the fear of doing something that makes common sense because it sounds like it might be socialism. It's normal. It's just living in a society is not socialism. But yeah, Justin Connolly, good to see you. AI will be a godsend for design work. No more wasting months for slight revisions to a logo or pack. A godsend for a lot of things, actually. A godsend for legal work, a godsend for... I'm looking forward to it. I don't see it as something that's going to replace. It's going to be, it means that the people who use it are going to be so much more productive, and it's going to be bad for people that don't use it. Absolutely. But it's not going to replace people who I think use it the right way. Personally, I'm an optimist. Anyway, back into the stories. Yeah, so of course, with the masking now lifted and, everybody pretending to be back to normal, even though Japan really isn't. Previous years, man, I remember even sharing a story about, tips for coming to Japan after the pandemic started. And somebody got very offended that I would even share stories about travel. And announced loudly that they were unfollowing me, to which I bye, but some people get really upset, even people like, and there were people who set up Hanami parties, which I must admit, when the government was specifically saying, please don't do Hanami parties, and some people saying, well, it's not a law, I can do whatever I want, so screw you, I'm going to do a Hanami party. In that case, I felt like that's not good form, and it makes foreigners look crappy. But now the government's like actually encouraging them, and yeah, most of the nice spots in Tokyo you can do Hanami. Where should you do Hanami in Tokyo? I only know Tokyo, by the way. The big famous ones, of course, are Yoyogi Park and Ueno. The problem is that they're crowded, full of people. Hard to get a spot and whatnot. It's still good for the atmosphere. It's nice to be sharing the experience. But I would say, if I was going to pick the best spots for Hanami in Tokyo, I would say Edogawa-bashi, Gokokuji. That's really good. You can do picnics along the river there, and the river's just covered in cherry blossoms. But the best place is Nakameguro. Nakameguro is like, again, spectacular. It's along a river, completely covered in cherry blossoms, and you've got like izakayas, and you can picnic there. It's kind of moving from being a secret spot to being like main spot. People are figuring it out, but I would say at the very least go for a walk through there. I think those are the best spots in Tokyo. But of course, the standard, if you want to sit down in a park, definitely Yogi Park. And now it's back, and it is a wonderful part of Japanese culture, so it's nice that it's now allowed. Sounds like there are rules, and people are still a little bit confused about how to go about it, but just common sense, and it should be fine. I think I talked about how this deal, how the Korean government's been reaching out to Japan. Lucy holding out the football, saying to Charlie Brown, no, this time, seriously, I'm just going to hold the ball there and let you kick it. We are going to resolve Japan's war legacy with South Korea for once and for all. We mean it this time. And you know what? The South Korean current conservative government, Korean governments, conservative governments are always like, yeah, if we're friends with Japan, then America will like that, and we can cooperate on defense, and we can fight communism, and it's good for the economy, and we should look forward. And but again, very complicated domestically, because when Japan was running South Korea, when Japan was brutally colonizing and occupying South Korea, the collaborators were generally thought to be associated with the conservative political factions that came after the war. Although when the left-wing government a few years ago thought it'd be a good idea to sort of undermine their political opponents by doing a purge, by revealing the names of all the collaborators, it turned out that there were as many collaborators who were fathers of modern politicians from left-wing parties as right-wing parties, and everyone got very traumatized by it. So there's no winning way around that. But here is the thing: I don't doubt the sincerity of the current South Korean government, and I think it's wonderful. No one wants South Korea and Japan to be friends and cooperating back together more than me. But the thing is, it never works because 59% of South Koreans are opposed to the South Korean government doing a deal with Japan to resolve the war labor claims, which will involve the South Korean government primarily paying out the compensation claims, which under the Diplomatic Relations Treaty they're supposed to do. But what everyone wants to see is Japan pay a penalty for it, which they don't recognize that Japan has done, even though Japan did pay compensation under the Diplomatic Relations Treaty of 1965. That was kind of suppressed at the time, and it's not in common knowledge in South Korea, and not considered legitimate. It's kind of a political football over there, which means that, yeah, again, if we do this deal, where again the final resolution, like of the comfort women issue with Park, it'll be the same thing. It'll be undone immediately, and we'll go back to zero. And frankly, the fact that they're even trying to do this is causing anti-Japanese sentiment by causing people to think about this. But there again, what Japan has said this time when these court things came out is they said, well, this is the basis of our diplomatic relations. So saying that you won't handle this under the diplomatic relations treaty, that you'll just resolve these and hold up your end of the bargain is the same as saying that you don't want diplomatic relations. And when these court cases came out awarding compensation from Japanese companies that were supposed to be immune from this, Japanese government withdrew its ambassador from Korea and didn't replace them. Effectively, they downgraded relations, and they've been doing this deliberately, and they downgraded a whole bunch of trade with South Korea, and it's kind of been hurting South Korea, but effectively they've kind of been giving them a little taste of not having diplomatic relations, which has kind of been the discussion, popularly, even in the Japan side. It's sort of like, well, why are we putting up with it? Why are we even doing this? Of course, there's a side. Japan did terrible things in South Korea. So it's really up to South Korea where, they don't have to make up. But if they do, they should, again, they have to sort of hold up their end of it, and they don't want to do that. So there's a lot of feeling, I think. I don't think the problem's solvable, and I really think it could end up that I don't think Japan and South Korea are ever going to break diplomatic relations entirely, but I think this kind of permanent cold freeze of two countries that basically don't cooperate or talk on anything is just going to continue, which is sad. It's not what I want, but that's up to the Koreans, frankly. I think Japan has done everything it can do, but the Koreans don't. But if the majority of Koreans do not want to make up with Japan or do not want to allow Japan the opportunity to resolve things, and let's face it, in this case, the whole deal is that Korea will pay the compensation, not Japan. That's why people are upset with it. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of depressing, honestly. But this is exactly why every deal fails, and the next one will fail. Kaiten Sushi has been kind of suffering since YouTubers found out it's cool to do pranks, videoing themselves doing gross things. Some people pointing out, kids have always been doing gross things at sushi bars, and that's why I never ate there. And you know what? It's probably true, but at the same time, when you're forced to confront it with a viral video, it is kind of disgusting, and it does kind of put you off. So, but what's been happening is now lately some YouTubers who have also been following this trend, posting videos of themselves licking the soy sauce and licking sushi and putting it back on the train. Videoing themselves. For some of them, at least when they're not kids, when they can be charged as adults, the police have been using the old gilmubogai, the old interference with business criminal charge, and actually criminally charging the people doing this. Gilmubogai is kind of a silly crime in a way. It's just interfering with the business is so vague, and it can be applied to anything. And Japanese generally do not over-prosecute. They're pretty reserved on how they'll decide to prosecute people, but they're deciding to go after these because it's becoming a bit of a trend, and it's really hurting these sushi businesses. And I must say, I have no sympathy. Although I think they should have better defined laws for prosecuting people and arresting people than interference with business. I think it's justified in this case, so have at it, if you ask me. I mean, seriously, what's wrong with people? By the way, quickly coming back into the comments, Lysander45, I see that you made it into the comments. Great to have you. My boom, WT, I don't know what that means. Anyway, there's no comments for me, so I'm just going to keep charging through. I mentioned earlier how, Japan, interesting, on the list of OECD countries, out of 29 countries, you can see through the years, all the jostling for different positions. Japan, number 8, doing pretty well, at least behind the Nordics and so on. Australia at 15, Britain at 17, OECD average between 18 and 19, the United States. But down at the bottom there, Switzerland, what's happening with Switzerland? I don't know, but Turkey, followed by Japan, followed by South Korea, consistently just bad in terms of lack of opportunities for women to have equality at work. And again, as well as the burden of, again, the reason that people don't have kids, the reason that, the economy doesn't improve, that wages don't go up. But again, it's cultural problems, which are, entrenched in Japan. So, Chris Rodham, dang, super late, but hi, good to see you. Slake Manson, what are you in for? Sushi terrorism. Well, they would say Gilmubogai, but yes, I must admit. But you know what? I think in the current climate, if you're in jail, I think admitting to sushi terrorism being the specific type of Gilmubogai, you'd be much... Gilmubogai sounds like extortion, right? I think you'd probably do better in prison if you said it was for extortion, if it was for doing gross things at kaiten sushi. Everyone's eating at kaiten sushi and is terrified that someone's done that. I think you would be in categories of prisoners that are not safe behind bars if you're admitted to sushi terrorism. Yeah, another big anniversary this year, 12 years since the 2011 March 11 earthquake. I actually found through the advanced search on Twitter, you can find the tweets that you do at the time. Insane. I won't go through all the details again. I've talked about them in previous years. Still 30,000 people still can't return to their homes, particularly the people, of course, around the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. But just such a crazy time. I mean, a magnitude 9.4 or 9.2 it ended. It was like 7 earthquakes, all triggered one after another, cascading. It lasted a minute and a half. I mean, and then constant aftershocks for days after, and going for months after. But yeah, it was. I remember it got to the point where after it was a minute long, it was like, this is too long to be an earthquake. This has to be something. This is literally like Japan sinking into the ocean. Like, what's going on here? It was crazy. Aaron, if you feel old, you're doing fine. Imagine how I feel. It's okay. Everything does kind of speed up, I must admit, over time. It was a long time ago, but yeah, still definitely feel the effects of it. Just even being in Tokyo, even being close, even for people overseas who just felt it. You know, I think everybody felt the sympathy and horror and everything. You know, of it all of the sort of the political dramas and the debates and stuff that happened after. I think everybody, again, nothing in comparison to the people who are actually injured, lost lives, lost homes, and are still homeless because of it. Nothing in comparison to that. But it affected millions and millions of people. So, yeah, it's a crazy time. And another anniversary. Kerberos Teichi, Switzerland is a bit complicated. There was a public vote if women should be allowed to vote. That's right, they allowed women to vote really late, didn't they? The only participants were men, not a single woman back in the days, but not so long ago. Yeah, the stuff which New Zealand sorted out in the 1870s. I think Switzerland was still not sorted out in the 1970s. But there you go. Maddie, here for the Hiko Power Hour. The Tower Hour Power something. Anyway, Aaron, peanuts, squirrels, all the stuff, powering through. We've got a couple more minutes. I'm going to get through. Okay. Lymphemy is awesome. I didn't think there was anything particularly about sushi.
The sushi business.
Stop. That's noisy. Yeah, Lymphemy is awesome. The history of sushi in Japan, I didn't think there was anything to learn. It's funny, and I learned a whole bunch from it, and it's really good. Like, subscribe to Lymphemy. He is awesome. His videos are good. The robot, the coffee was so good, I gave it a 10. It's really, really cool. I'm gonna take a video of this later this week. Artly, yeah, it's really, really cool. Anyway, and the coffee in Seattle, of course, is just consistently very, very good. Went for a run this morning. So I used the car that I got to go to Green Lake, just 5K course, same as the Palace, the Imperial Palace, but with less hills. So I got around it pretty fast. Was kind of happy. It was freezing cold, but yeah, had a good run. Also, as I mentioned earlier, for people coming in, I asked for like a Kia hatchback for $130 for 24 hours, just to sort of get used to driving around. I checked out Discovery Park, which has like a big Indian cultural center, which was, and they call it Indian Cultural Center. So that was good. You know, sort of drove to Issaquah, went all over the place anyway. But yeah, they said, oh, we don't have the hatchback, so you've got to take a B&W Sports. Okay, and they said it's cold, but I do recommend opening the sunroof since it's there, which I did. I totally did. I gave it back at midday today, but yeah, that was you know what? And now that I think about it, I had it for 24 hours, but I gave it back at midday. But it was daylight saving. I should have gotten an extra hour with it. But anyway, I did have a very good time, and I got used to driving in America because my instinct is, of course, to drive into oncoming traffic at every opportunity. So yes, I got used to not driving into people or oncoming traffic. I just got the hang of it, and I do want to do road trip at some point. I must admit, yeah, doing it all by yourself. I guess staying busy is how you stop it feeling a little bit lonely. I do lots of things. I go to see lots of places, and I do find it all very interesting. But yeah, you do get tired driving around on your own a bit. But I am looking forward to totally doing the Oregon Goonies tour. So that's coming. It'd be great if it's in that car. But I had a great day doing that. In terms of harsh political put downs, this is a really funny one. Yeah, there's a whole thing to this I wanted to talk about as well. Apparently, a critic within the LDP of Kishida said that Kishida is like Nobita-kun, only without Doraemon. How do I explain this quickly? Doraemon is, of course, not really broadcast anywhere outside of Japan. It's funny, I once read a pop culture book that explained the reason that for all the anime, that I grew up watching outside of Japan, like Astro Boy and, the Hans Christian Andersen fairy tales and, all this Japanese animation that was popular overseas. Doraemon was never adopted overseas, primarily because it was reviewed by censor boards and essentially where every story's got to have some kind of moral, some sort of educational value of teaching kids the value of helping others, or solving crimes or something, Scooby Dooby Doo. I don't know exactly what the morality behind half these cartoons are supposed to be, but whatever it is, Doraemon failed like every country except Japan. It was basically banned because it was considered to be actually detrimental to children's like ethical development, because Nobita is basically a bad kid, like a dumb, lazy, bad kid who's got a cat robot from the future that just bails him out of every situation. And it's so funny, there are so many Japanese, when I was learning Japanese, that have the mentality from growing up, being so impacted from this being the most popular cartoon, that they'll just say, you have these lazy Japanese, Japanese people, when they're being lazy, they'll just say, oh, I just wish I had a Doraemon robot to just bail me out of this and let me just be a failure of a human being. Which is why the show is banned in other countries and why people don't know it very well. Everyone watches Dragon Ball and stuff, but seriously, if you want to understand like Japanese people, watch Doraemon. Doraemon has a remarkable impact on the psyche of Japanese. So for someone to criticize the current prime minister, saying that he's like Nobita without a Doraemon is really harsh. It's really harsh, but it's kind of funny, and it works very, very well. Yeah. I read that. I was like, ouch. So that's the thing. Of course, at Japan Freedom Day, as I mentioned at the beginning from today, Japan revises COVID-19 mask guidance, but the expectation is going to impact anything assumes that the COVID guidance ever had an impact in the first place, when everybody just put masks on the moment they said pandemic. And I think it's too entrenched to change easily. It sounds like today people are going around and they're still wearing masks. So yeah, those are all the topics. Again, Erin, I'm so glad to see that you held on for so long. I love driving. I'm going to be doing more of that. But yes, thanks for keeping me company. Sorry, I think this is the last time that the times are going to move around before I go back at the end of June. Looking forward to traveling around some more anyway. Yeah, look, again, maskless for a month in America. I assumed everything in America was covered in like 3 centimeters of COVID. No, I was going to have it like 10 times. Touch wood. Not yet, but yeah, which is reassuring actually, although I'll just follow the norms if I go back to Japan. But America's still awesome. Japan is still cool. I mean, I'm basically watching NHK News every morning and I'm not watching American news. There's nothing really that interests me, honestly, about it. I'm not watching TV at all other than Japanese stuff. I got a VPN for that. So yeah, it's kind of funny. I'm keeping up, but I'm having a good time here. I hope that you're all having a good time and staying safe and taking care of yourselves. Remember, follow me on Twitter, and it will be this time. Whatever this time is for you, it shouldn't be changing from now on, unless you're having daylight saving at a different time or something like that. So this is a new fixed time. Have a good week, everybody. See you again, same time next week, and boom, peace. When the hell are we going to see a female Japanese PM? I don't know. Maddie, is this the first time that you're in the USA? It's not the first time, but it's the first time, well, second time I've done a 3-month stint, like when I first came to Japan, like a long time ago. This is the first time. Come to Orange County. I'm going to Los Angeles in June. So does that count? I love to get down there. That'll definitely be in there. Don't tip the robots. I'm going to tip the robots. It's like, I don't want to be the guy who doesn't tip. So no, I'm just afraid of social ostracization wherever I go. So, and it's a nice robot. It works hard. It was trying to put its kids through college. I'm going to pay it tips. So anyway, have a good week, everybody, and boom, peace. Don't forget to tip your robot. Cool, have a good one, everyone. Ending stream. There we go. See ya. Ending.